What is sacred?
Mystery in my own life.
Giving immediately just equated to dollar signs.
It's kind of scary sometimes.
I have certain things that I have always considered to be sacred.
Whether it's money, whether it's a talent, whether it's time or energy.
Everything is sacred.
However we give of ourselves.
We can really experience this expansiveness. Hello and welcome to Truth Be Told. This month we have been talking about the light. And if you've been following along in our 31 expressions of the light, you know that there's so many ways that this idea of light can be manifested, can be embodied in our own lives. So tonight we're going to take a closer look at three particular expressions of the light. We're going to talk about mystery, we're going to talk about giving, and we're going to talk about the sacred. And so as we explore these topics, kind of think about it in your own life, how these things show up and how these things point you toward the light and in ways that you can embody this experience of life, especially this time of year where we're focusing on uncovering the light. So sit back and relax and enjoy another episode of Truth Be Told. So I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of mystery. So I love a good mystery novel. I love a good mystery TV show or movie. When I think about mystery in my own life, it's kind of scary sometimes. I'm the type of person that likes to operate when I like to know exactly what's going to go on. I need to know all the steps. I need to know all the contingency plans. I need to know what's going to be the outcome. And sometimes that's just not possible. Actually, most times that's just not possible. And so when we look at this idea of mystery, it's really closely tied and often the birthplace of creativity. And we know that we're creative beings. We do this each and every day. Whether we're creating by design or by default, we are creative, constantly creating our experience, constantly stepping in to different experiences and different outcomes. And so when we can look at this idea of mystery and really sink deep into it, then we can really experience this expansiveness, this gentle flow of life. Because when we look at nature, when we look at just even going outside and just seeing how the universe operates, it is this gentle flow, this gentle stepping into this space, and sometimes the space of the unknown. And so it's okay not to know everything. Actually, the less we know, sometimes the freer we are. The freer to maybe let go of the strongholds, these things in our life that are keeping us kind of focused or constricted on one way or one outcome. So I know when I have in my mind this idea of how I want something to go, and I want it to go this way, and I can't see any other thing but that one way of this situation going, then in that moment I have closed off myself to the experience of anything else. Anything that may be greater than what I could have imagined, anything that would bring good into my experience that I couldn't have imagined, because I'm so focused and locked in on this one way of being. And we live in a world that is information and knowing and knowledge is something that is revered and held close to. And that those things are important, but sometimes there are things that have to be left a mystery. There's some things in our lives that we just have to let go of. Loosen our hold, loosen our expectation, and let the mystery, let the flow of the universe, let the experience of the now moment and all it has to bring to guide us into that next step, and then that next step, and that next step. Because each day is an opportunity to show up in a new way. So each day, in essence, is a mystery. that we are not the same people that we were yesterday. So we step into today with new stuff, new knowledge, new insights, new awarenesses. And then we take those and then we step into today, and then tomorrow, and then to tomorrow. And so it becomes more about just being and less about having to know everything, leaving something to mystery, allowing life to be kind of like a big surprise party. And who doesn't like a good surprise party? So I think for me, when I can let go and release and allow things to be as they are, then I am filled with this just expansive awareness, and I'm able just to relax, to rest in the mystery.
It's really interesting. It sparked a lot of thoughts around. You said something about like, in our society, basically, like we have this like need to know,
Right.
and I can remember first finding Science of Mind and kind of having this unconscious belief that it was like, oh, this is the way to know more than to really know what's going on, to really understand, right? And I think that's probably not uncommon, that this teaching, it's really easy for Science of Mind to become a pathway to attempting to know more, attempting to understand more, attempting to, like I'm going to control how this experience shows up.
Yeah.
And that whole idea of mystery, like, oh, that's a whole like that almost seems like a whole other like mystical experience. That do we talk about that? Is that? I mean, I think Ernest Holmes, the founder, I think he understood all that, but did he write about it? No. And so
Right.
100 years later, it's like, what gets talked about. That's what gets talked about is what was written. So that's kind of an interesting aspect, and I don't know that it's, for me, I don't know that it has been unique to just the word mystery. I mean, I've been kind of having that experience all month long of this reminder of just how mystical this teaching can be, just how mystical we really are as beings, as people. Like, we really are looking for that. Like, yeah, imagine if we could just be okay being like, oh yeah, that's the mystery of life. Yeah. We don't have to know. Huh.
I feel like I know less now than when I started.
Well, I think go ahead.
Yeah. I was just thinking like, it's a different type of knowing. It's not a knowing like answers. Like, this is the question and this is the answer. But it's like that knowing that's more like a resting sort of experience. So it's not acquiring more answers, but it's, I don't know, it's kind of, it's living in the question. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what it feels like for me. I think that's the mystery, the question.
When Reverend Dan talking about like the mystical nature, I feel like we have that we are, tuned into this thing that gives us inspiration of like, hey, maybe you should go try this thing. Maybe you should try living in another city. We have like these impulses, but then we have our natural tendencies, that fear of the unknown, where people will stay, in an unhappy situation that they know is a dead end, miserable situation, because that fear of the unknown is so powerful that even with that impulse that says get out or go do this, go experience something new. So I love that our teaching kind of encourages that, to lean into your inspiration and try something new and envision, like if that impulse is coming to you, start to picture what might that look like. So then maybe that fear of the unknown is starting to like play out in your imagination to where like, oh, maybe it'll be like this, to kind of help give us the little nudge to go try those bigger things.
The nudge.
The nudge.
I guess we shall see. That is the mystery.
It is the mystery. Yep.
Continuing in our series, Uncovering the Light, I thought this week one of the words we could talk about is giving. Giving is one of the expressions of light that we have celebrated in our 31 Expressions of Light month-long celebration event. And I thought, this is really worth digging into a little deeper, because when I hear the word giving, a whole lot of things come to mind, which are not the things that we very briefly touched on the other night when we live streamed and announced this the word of the day, when we announced giving as the word of the day. Giving immediately just equated to dollar signs, and especially being in a nonprofit field, that's the way the word is used so often. But I think there's so much more to this expression of light simply than just money. Yeah, that can definitely be part of it, and that can be really important, and a lot of people make a spiritual practice of giving, and great. And there is a whole other realm of giving that I think is equally, if not more valuable than what we do with our money. I just want to read the description of this word from the other night. Giving. To give freely and openly is to recognize the true nature of our being. The universe is continuously made and remade by the thing itself, or spirit, giving of itself to itself. This is the universal law of creation acting upon thought to create life. We live in this same way. When we recognize that gift that is unique to ourself and give of that gift, we are reenacting the nature of creation in the most powerful way. Simply, to give is to be the light. Giving is so much more than just our prosperity, but giving is the activity of creating life. Giving is the way we recognize ourselves as the all that there is. Giving is how the all that there is shows up through us. And the way the world was created, however you want to look at it, was the thing itself giving of itself to itself. Life was created in that moment of giving. And if you know anything about quantum physics and have looked into the observer effect at all, that is how life creates. Literally, moment to moment, life is created over and over and over. We are giving to ourselves the experience of being here, being in this world, in this realm, being alive. We are observing the universe. We are observing, taking part in the creation moment to moment, observing the electrons creating all of the quantum material that is life. Giving also, I think, shows up when we, if we want to take this a step further into our interactions with other people. Giving is how we allow for more space in our life for others to show up authentically, more space for us to show up authentically. When we give of that gift, that thing that is uniquely us, which I can't tell you what that is for you. You have to find that, and there is a part of you that knows already. When you know what that is, and you create intentional space in your life to do that thing, to be that thing, to act on that thing, to bring that out into the world, to gift that to others around you, creates space for more authentic life. It creates the space for others to show up more authentically. Never have we interacted in the creation of life by holding back. Never have we engaged in experiencing more by being unsure of ourselves, or by listening to that little ego voice that thinks maybe we're not quite good enough, or we shouldn't share this part of ourselves, or let's not be that thing, let's just fit in. Never in any of those ways have we engaged in creating more life, in making space for this light that we're talking about all month long. We do those things by giving of ourselves. which is kind of a funny phrase that I've heard for a long time that has taken a while to kind of really sink in what that means. You hear it at first and think, okay, yeah, that sounds great, to give of ourselves. But what does that really mean? It means to engage in the life around you and the experience around you fully. To give of yourself is to show up fully, to show up authentically, to offer that gift that is uniquely yours to those around you, to add your authentic self into the experience in front of you. And so when we give in any way, no matter what it is, whether it's money, whether it's a talent, whether it's time or energy, however we give of ourselves, not only are we creating and recreating life literally in that kind of quantum physics way, but we are also allowing for others to show up more authentically themselves, to also give of their gift. And so giving definitely way more than just those thoughts that come to mind initially when I think of the word. But I would like to look at this as a retraining, at least of my mind, and maybe yours too, if you have some of those same thoughts, but a retraining that giving is so much more than that. Giving is how we actually engage in creating life.
I love that very much. For me, it just continues right on, with the idea of following that impulse that you get, from the universe or from your deeper self or whatever. And when you're not, don't follow that and you stay small, like you're withholding. Like, who knows if you step into that impulse, you're bringing yourself to other places, to other situations. And just by, you hit so many awesome things there. That just by being yourself authentically, that's a gift to the world. And when you put on that mask and you don't share that with the world, you're withholding it back. I loved what you had to say there. Good stuff.
And I think we're just so used to that feeling like safe or something. Like we're safer if we do that.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Are we though?
yeah, are we really?
Well, Christopher, that's exactly what jumped out at me too, is that we talk about authenticity, and yes, that's something we've talked about a lot, and how that's important, and how if we do that, we allow others to do that as well. And I never really thought about that as a gift, but what greater gift can that be? Not only the gift of showing up to life in that way, but then by doing that, the gift is that we allow other people to do the same thing. And it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. I think I like this idea of activity, or giving being this activity of life. That is what that's what the universe does. It's just constantly giving of itself to itself through itself, and then it's back this thing over and over and over again. And so then we get to be the little wormhole for that as well, that we are giving of ourselves, as ourselves, in ourselves, and this is this constant sort of thing. Yeah, has nothing to do about gifts like material things. I think that can be part of it, but it's more that energy that is reflected in everything that we see. So yeah, I like the idea.
And I think to take that even kind of a step deeper is I've been realizing there's been a bunch of words this month that we have talked about as expressions of light that have a way of showing up as a verb. And when you kind of get into those words, there's this like really deep place of, at least I have had this experience. So I think this is available to everyone, and I'm sure I'm not the only one having this experience, that like giving, right? That so much more aptly describes the all that there is. Like that verb is so much more, like when we talk about oneness, and yet, growing up in a society that has this really deep-seated belief in a God out there, like a physical human being God, creature, figure, whatever, it's really hard to know when you're unconsciously filtering language through that version of God,
Yeah.
even when we're talking about oneness, right?
Right.
But then things like giving show up, which for me had like no connection to that God figure thing whatsoever. And so it's this like entirely new perspective on, oh, that's how that thing, the all that there is, whatever all that is, that's that's one of the ways that shows up. Oh, that's what that looks like. That's what that feels, right? And it has this whole other like visceral experience of God, of
Mhm.
oneness, of the universe, of whatever word we're trying to, right? Like giving almost seems like in this context for me, giving almost became more of an accurate description of the all that there is than universe or spirit or any of the other things that I started using as a replacement for human figure, man, God in the
Right.
throne in the clouds kind of thing.
Right.
Whatever
Yeah,
that
for
is, right?
sure. Yeah.
And so I hope that is, coming through, and that other people are starting to find that. um I'll say that, yeah, we planned that. We totally knew this going into this,
Of
that's
course
what was
we
going
did. Well, and it's like too, like when you talk about spirit or God or universe, but this idea of giving really speaks to it because it's activity, and I think that's what that presence is. It's always
yeah,
active.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
there's always something going on, like you always say. There's
And
always
we are
something,
it, and the whole is it, like everything is that thing. Yeah,
and it's always moving forward. Always.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are super glad to have you here with us. We absolutely love doing this. I don't know if you know that or not. I hope so, because I think we say it about every week. But this is literally like the best job in the world, to get to be able to come together and share with you and each other, all of this wisdom and information and knowledge and all of those other things. The gift of this teaching and bringing this out into the world, and just being able to be the ones that do this in this way. So thank you for playing with us. And if you are looking to play further with us, we have a myriad of options for you to do that. If you want to jump over to our website at some point, soulevolutioncollaborative.org, there you can find all of the things that we are doing as a community. Tuesday nights, we obviously have this video. Wednesday nights, we have spiritual practice, a meditation with Chris. Thursday nights, we have what we call the gathering, which is where we get to jump into this conversation even deeper, and get to share of our own experience and really kind of just show up to see each other and be seen. It is a really beautiful kind of community experience where we start to take our the personal journey work that we are doing on our own to whatever degree we're doing that, and we get to bring that into community and show up and talk about it. So that's a really amazing opportunity to jump in. And then Sundays, we have what we call Strip Down Sunday, which is the stripped down version of a Sunday service where we just get to provide a message of inspiration on whatever the topic is for that week. And that's been a lot of fun for us, and it sounds like a lot of fun for those watching. Certainly new things to come in the future. And this month, as you have already heard, we're doing 31 Expressions of Light all month long, every night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We jump online for about 8 minutes and do a little spiritual ritual and announce a expression of light for the next day, which becomes our focus for that next period of 24-hour period of time, with an activity to engage in as a community and as individuals. And that has been tremendously powerful and inspirational and spiritually deepening, among many other things. So check that out. Shortly after we conclude tonight, that will be up live on our Facebook page and YouTube. And in the future, we have many more things coming up, other ways for us to come together as community and just continue feeding you all with spiritual enlightenment and upliftment and all of that good stuff. So we are, again, certainly more than happy to be here, delighted to be here, sharing this all with you. We hope you are enjoying it as much as we are.
Getting ready to eat some sacred Lucky Charms. Out of my sacred bowl, with the sacred spoon, some sacred milk from a sacred cow. So what is sacred? Well, the definition that comes up first is connected with God or the gods, or dedicated to a religious purpose, and so deserving veneration. So what we label as sacred is ultimately subjective and personal to the individual. What I call sacred, somebody else may disagree, and what they consider sacred may be in disagreement with someone else. It's all subjective. Well, in the Science of Mind philosophy, and in my heart, we understand and believe that everything is one. We call it the thing itself. You can call it God or spirit, the universe, nature, original source. All these different labels just point us to that one thing. And the belief that everything is that, everything in this physical world is a manifestation of that, everything unseen is that, it's all that exists, so that anything connected with God is deserving veneration. So as I see this, if I label everything as sacred, does it somehow diminish what other people hold as sacred? It only does if they allow it to in their own mind. So that's something worth looking at. For me, I have certain things that I have always considered to be sacred. And I'm moving towards this philosophy and this practice of seeing everything as sacred. So as I do that, it doesn't diminish my respect and reverence for the thing previously considered sacred. It just adds more things that I'm able to see mentally and internally as part of that subjective. And as I do that from a place of genuine authenticity, essentially I am creating myself the experience of the oneness. I'm reminding myself that I am that it is me, that the core of my essence is that divine, and nothing can take away from it, nothing can add to it, nothing can harm it. So as a spiritual practice, what I call PWC is praying without ceasing, which is, it's my target. It's not always accomplished, very seldomly, like a good day. If I remember to do this 10 times in a day, that's a pretty successful day. Some days I might not remember even once to stop and recognize that everything that I'm interacting with is the divine. Whatever actions I'm doing, if I remember to do it from a place of deeper meaning and connected to this bigger thing, then I do it more mindfully and more appreciatively. When I am not in that place and I end up finding myself, feeling animosity or getting triggered or upset or sad, when I'm in those states that are not as pleasant, it's because I'm feeling separate from that one thing. So the more times that I can practice seeing the sacred all around me and everything is sacred, then it's reminding me that I am that one divine thing. Imagine a world where we hold everything as deserving veneration. We would treat the environment with more respect and dignity. We would treat the people around us. We would treat the others as equals, as part of this divine. We would live in a world where truly we can see the biggest and best attributes that we attribute to a bigger thing or to the best part of our own nature. We would begin to see that grow and blossom in all experience. Seeing everything as the sacred can actually become a perfect spiritual practice.
The sacred Lucky Charms. I didn't do the same again.
Love it.
No, I do. I like that idea. Like when we view everything from that lens, I don't know, everything seems a lot clearer. Like things tend to pop more in my experience when I take the time to recognize the sacred, the value in everything. And that understand that there's not like your sacred life and then you're not sacred life, that it's all sacred. Kind of goes back to that wholeness thing we talk about. Like it's all part of it. I think everything goes back to wholeness for some reason.
Right.
Because I know I've said that like for the last like 15 episodes. It's all about wholeness. But it's like this whole idea that it's all a part of that. And when we can recognize that, then I think we begin to feel closer and less separate. Like not only from each other, but from ourselves, and then from our understanding of the divine and like our place in the universe and things like that. That it's all sacred.
Yeah. I love that you kind of touched on this idea. I think there is a common belief that that if everything is sacred, that nothing could be. So we have to like pick and choose, right? And I can see why, I can see where that logic comes from. Like that sounds like it makes sense. That like, well, if everything's special, nothing is. So if everything's sacred, then nothing is. And I think maybe from like a human-only perspective, like if we're at the top of the spiritual food chain or whatever, yeah, that might make sense. But when you realize that food chain is a whole lot more flat than we thought, and a lot more, horizontal than we thought, and everything's a lot more equal and equitable than we thought, then recognizing everything as sacred just elevates everything, because we're looking at it then from that more holistic wholeness perspective, where we can actually see everything as sacred, and actually that's maybe the point. That if we that might actually be the exact opposite of if everything's sacred, then nothing is. But if everything is sacred, then everything gets to be more sacred. Right? If that kind of becomes like a mind twist, but as soon as the more we recognize something as sacred, the more things we recognize as sacred, the more of life we recognize as sacred, it actually elevates. It does the opposite of what I think we've been trained to think. It actually elevates the sacredness of all the other things we've already thought were sacred, because it just elevates the whole perspective of sacredness.
It like gives more instead of taking away. It gives.
Yeah. And I think we do have this perspective of things that are sacred and things that are not, and I think also that maybe that's necessary until we get to the place where we can view everything all the time as sacred.
Right.
Which is also an interesting paradigm.
For sure. I like that idea. Like when we hold one thing as sacred, then it kind of like belittles the other things around us, which one part that didn't make the cut for that talk was one of my first turnoffs from the church when I was young was that idea like, okay, here we are now in church. So this is a sacred building. So your behavior needs to change.
Yeah.
You can't, no curse words here, and no laughing, because God's here. God's in this house. So act different than you do out there. It's fine. However you want to act out there is fine, because that's not sacred. But here you be different. And that to me is just like, isn't God everywhere? That doesn't make sense that it's in here and not out there. So by saying like this is sacred, then all of a sudden it means like everything out there then isn't. So do whatever you want out there.
Do whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
Get out in the parking lot and start your road rage to try to get to that exit quickest. And
well, and that's what it's turned into, right? Because I think from that humanized, human-only perspective, where we are separate or view ourselves as separate, that's what happens. But I think the flip side of that is, like our 31-day event that we're doing this month, right? We were, in the creation of that, how many conversations where we were like, okay, we're not trying to create another holiday, but everything we visioned about and talked about, we kept coming up with the definition of what would be a holiday. Mm-hmm. And the reason we were wanting not to do that is like, well, we don't want to set aside these days as different than the other days. These days aren't more special just because it's in the month of December than the other days. And yet at the same time, in deciding to set aside these days as different days than the other days, that's literally what it's like. you can't set aside certain days and not say you're setting aside certain days. But these days don't become more special than the other days. These days, because we're doing it in I think this kind of conscious way that we're doing it in, and we have this recognition of how we are proceeding through these days and what it means, that in doing this, so we've set aside time that says, okay, this is going to be particularly sacred time because we're going to recognize it as that. So we're setting this like threshold that we're stepping across into this sacred space to realize, oh, yeah, right, this is what it is like to be in that sacred space. And here's a thing that you can take with you after this to realize that all of tomorrow is also sacred space.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of it in this way, it becomes this method of elevating all of the days, like beyond these 31 days. It's just 8 minutes each night. It's not just a 24-hour period, but it's every day, all the time. And we're going, oh, right. This is if we look at this regular normal day as a sacred day, all of a sudden all of the days can become sacred.
Right.
But
it's like a practice.
So much like we always talk about, it comes down to the intention, and and the intention. If you lose that intention on in a Sunday morning Main Street church where church is Sunday only, and you're in this place and this is the only place that's sacred, well, yeah, right. Then that's what happens. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
So thank you so much for being here. Like Reverend Dan said, this is truly nothing we would like to do more. So we do definitely enjoy this. So we enjoy your support to keep us moving on this. Now, if you'd like to look into these topics that we talked about tonight a little further, join us on Thursday night. That's what we do. It's the gathering, and that's how we get to look deeper within ourselves and explore and share this with each other. So by all means, please come play with us more often. Now, Soul Evolution Collaborative is supported and made possible by people like you. So if you would like to help financially support this ministry, you can find the donate button at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. All donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. More ways to support us. If financial support isn't in the cards for you, just sharing this, get this word out. Let people know that we're here and that you like our message. Share the message with others. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications on YouTube. All these little things help kind of play into the algorithms that just get our message out there further. So we deeply appreciate all the support that you're willing to offer. And together we are creating this new world, this new earth, and let's just keep that ball rolling. So thank you so much. To stay up to date with all the things that Reverend Dan talked about coming up in the future, sign up for our email at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. So we'll see some of you Thursday night at 7 o'clock. We'll see some at 8:30 each night for our expressions of the light. And everybody else, we'll see you here next week.